How to make a woman desire you even if she's not interested. Vertical bar female psychology. Here's something that might sting a little. That woman who seems completely uninterested in you, she's not rejecting you. She's rejecting the version of you she's seen so far. And that distinction is everything because according to research from Harvard Social Cognition Lab, women form their initial impression of a man within the first 7 seconds. But here's the twist. That impression can be completely overwritten by specific psychological triggers that most men have absolutely no clue exist. I'm about to hand you the exact blueprint that can flip a woman's perception from absolutely not to wait. There's something about him, and no, this isn't manipulation, this is evolution. This is psychology. This is what we as women actually respond to, whether we admit it publicly or not. Now, before you assume this video is about cheap tricks or cringeworthy pickup lines, let me stop you right there. I'm a woman, and I'm going to tell you exactly what happens inside our minds when attraction suddenly shifts. Because, yes, it shifts. It's not fixed. The woman who friend-zoned you last month, the one who seems completely cold, she's operating on psychological programming that's been refined over thousands of years. And once you understand how that programming works, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Here's what most men get catastrophically wrong. They think attraction is about looks, money, or saying the right thing at the right time. Wrong. Attraction for women is an emotional experience. It's not logical. It's not a checklist. It's a feeling that builds or doesn't based on very specific triggers. I'm going to break down the psychology behind female desire in a way that no one has explained to you before. And I'm going to share something near the end of this video that completely changed how I understood my own attraction patterns. It was uncomfortable to admit, but it explained every single time I developed feelings for someone I initially had zero interest in. But first, we need to address the elephant in the room. Why not interested doesn't mean what you think it means. Let me tell you about my friend Megan. She met this guy at a networking event. His name was Derek, and her exact words after meeting him were, and I quote, "He's nice, but there's nothing there." Classic not interested energy, right? Fast forward 6 months, Megan and Derek are engaged. What happened between nothing there and engagement ring? This is where it gets interesting. See, when a woman says she's not interested, what she's really saying is based on the information I currently have. I don't feel attraction. That's it. It's a present tense statement, not a permanent verdict. And the information she's working with is almost always incomplete. Dr. Helen Fisher, a biological anthropologist who spent over 40 years studying romantic love, found something remarkable. The brain's reward system, the same system that responds to food, music, and yes, desire, doesn't get triggered by static qualities. It gets triggered by unpredictability, emotional fluctuation, and novelty. In simple terms, a woman's brain doesn't build attraction to someone who's completely figured out. It builds attraction to someone who keeps her guessing just enough. Derek didn't become more handsome over those 6 months. He didn't suddenly get wealthy. What he did was become psychologically interesting to Megan in ways she couldn't quite explain. And by the time she realized what was happening, she was already invested. This brings me to the first major principle you need to understand. Psychologists call it the uncertainty hypothesis of attraction. And honestly, when I first learned about this research, I was annoyed because it explained way too much about my own romantic history. Here's the study that changed everything. Researchers at the University of Virginia told female participants that several men had viewed their social media profiles. One group was told the men liked them a lot. Another group was told the men rated them as average. And a third group, they were told it was uncertain the men might like them a lot or they might just think they were okay. Guess which group felt the most attraction to the men? The uncertain group by a significant margin. The women in the uncertain condition reported thinking about the men more often, checking their phones more frequently, and rating them as more desirable, all because they didn't know where they stood. This is crucial. When a woman knows exactly how you feel about her from the first interaction, when you're an open book showing all your cards, her brain literally has less reason to think about you. You've eliminated the mystery. You've removed the tension. And before anyone accuses me of telling you to play games, let me be clear. This isn't about being manipulative or cold. It's about not being desperate. It's about being genuinely engaged in your own life rather than making her the center of it before she's even earned that position. The most attractive men I've encountered didn't withhold affection to be strategic. They were simply too busy being interesting to be constantly available. There's a massive difference. Now, here's where most advice falls apart. Creating uncertainty means nothing if you don't understand the next principle. I once dated a guy who was objectively speaking exactly my type: tall, funny, successful, great hair, and yes, the hair matters more than men realize. On paper, he was perfect, but after 3 weeks, I was bored out of my mind and I couldn't figure out why. Then I met someone else who shouldn't have registered on my radar at all. He wasn't my usual type. He wasn't particularly smooth, but something about our conversations left me replaying them hours later. What was different? Emotional range. The first guy was consistent, consistently nice, consistently positive, consistently agreeable. Every interaction felt the same: pleasant but forgettable. The second guy, our conversations went from teasing to deep to philosophical to playful within minutes. He challenged my opinions. He laughed at things unexpectedly. He was sometimes serious, sometimes ridiculous. I never knew which version I was getting, and that unpredictability made me pay attention. Research from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology confirms this. Emotional variability in social interactions creates what researchers call heightened cognitive engagement. In non-academic language, it makes the other person think about you more. Here's what this looks like in practice. Most men try to be likable by being agreeable. They mirror her energy, validate every statement, and never create tension, and they end up in the friend zone wondering what went wrong. Attraction isn't built on comfort. Comfort is what keeps couples together after 20 years of marriage. But attraction is built on tension, playful tension, intellectual tension, the kind of tension that makes her feel something, even if what she's feeling is mild frustration that she can't quite figure you out. The most attracted I've ever been to someone was when he casually disagreed with something I was passionate about, not rudely, not dismissively. He just said, "I don't know if I buy that," and then explained his perspective. I spent the next 2 days trying to prove him wrong in my head. And somewhere in that process, I realized I was completely interested. This brings me to something even more important, and this is the part I mentioned earlier that was uncomfortable to admit about myself. Here's the uncomfortable truth that women rarely say out loud: we're more attracted to men that other women want. I know it sounds terrible. It feels shallow to admit, but the science is overwhelming. This phenomenon is called mate choice copying, and it's been documented across multiple species, not just humans. A study published in Scientific Reports found that women rated men as significantly more attractive when they were photographed with a woman who was smiling at them versus when they were alone. The effect was even stronger when the woman in the photograph was considered attractive. In other words, a man's perceived value goes up when high-value women seem interested in him. Now, here's my uncomfortable admission. I once became interested in a coworker I had ignored for months. And the shift happened exactly when I noticed another woman flirting with him at a company event. Suddenly, he wasn't background noise anymore. Suddenly, I was curious. Suddenly, I was asking myself why I hadn't noticed him before. Was it logical? Absolutely not. Did it happen anyway? Yes, because attraction isn't a logical process. What does this mean for you? It doesn't mean you need to parade women around to trigger jealousy. What it means is this: when you invest in your social life, when you're visibly valued by others, men and women, you become inherently more interesting to the woman you're interested in. The guys who struggle most with attraction are often the ones who've made their entire social world about pursuing one woman. They've abandoned friendships, hobbies, and any semblance of independent life. And ironically, that desperation energy pushes away the very person they want. Social proof works. Being genuinely valued by your community works. Having a life that's full, genuinely full, not performatively full, makes you more attractive, period. But there's one more element that ties everything together, and I saved it for near the end because it's the most commonly misunderstood. Every woman says she wants a confident man, and every time a woman says that, some guy puffs up his chest and starts acting arrogant, completely missing the point. Let me tell you what confidence actually looks like from a woman's perspective, because most men have this backwards. Confidence isn't loudness. It isn't dominating conversations. It isn't bragging about achievements or trying to prove your worth. Confidence is being comfortable with silence. It's maintaining eye contact without looking away first. It's not over-explaining yourself when you share an opinion. It's accepting rejection without crumbling or getting hostile. It's not needing her approval to feel good about yourself. The most confident men I've met were often the quietest ones in the room. They didn't need to perform, they didn't need to prove anything. They simply existed in a state of self assurance that was magnetic. A study from the International Journal of Cosmetic Science found that men who were told they were wearing a new attractive fragrance were rated as more confident and attractive in video recordings. Even though the women rating them couldn't smell anything, the men believed they were more attractive. And that belief changed their body language in ways that women could perceive. Confidence isn't about becoming someone you're not. It's about eliminating the signals of insecurity that you don't even realize you're sending. The nervous laughter, the excessive agreeing, the constant checking for her reaction, the apologizing for opinions you haven't even stated yet. Remove those signals, and the woman who wasn't interested suddenly starts noticing something different about you, something she can't quite name, but something that makes her curious enough to find out. So, let me bring this full circle. The woman who seems uninterested isn't issuing a permanent verdict. She's responding to the information she has. Your job isn't to convince her with words, it's to become someone whose presence triggers curiosity, uncertainty, and emotional investment. Create space for mystery, show emotional range, build a life that demonstrates value, and eliminate the subtle signals of insecurity that push women away before attraction can build. Here's my challenge to you. Pick one principle from this video and implement it this week. Just one. Notice what changes. Notice how women respond differently when you stop being predictable and start being interesting. Now, if you found this valuable, you're going to want to watch what's on screen right now. I made a video specifically about the psychological triggers that make a woman pursue you instead of the other way around. The strategies work whether she's already in your life or someone you just met. And honestly, point number 3 in that video is something I've never heard anyone else explain properly. That video is on screen right now. Click it before this one ends because what you just learned was the foundation. But what's in that video is where the real transformation happens. I'll see you there.